Welcome to part 3 of the Philco 37640 restoration video series. In this video, we're going to talk about the ReFauxPro product and really just have some fun with it. So what I did is, when I first got this radio, I noticed that the original finish had been power sanded off, and there wasn't really anything I could do about that. But I did actually find some photos of what the radio is supposed to look like, and it is absolutely stunning when it's done correctly. The thing is, there really aren't very many options for bringing back that original faux finish. You could always veneer it, and actually that is something that if this ends up becoming a failure, that is what I'm going to do. I am actually going to veneer this. I've really mulled it over in my head. I've priced out some veneer and the materials, and I've looked at some videos on how to do it. And I'm telling you, I'm really tempted to just dig right in and make it a winter project. It will be a lengthy project. It will be very expensive. But I figure before I go through that, I'm going to give the ReFaux product a chance. I first ordered a set of labels. Well, I'm calling them labels, but if I say labels, I mean decals. I apologize. They are decals. They are not labels. A label would have an adhesive backing. These do not. They're actually water slide decals. So I ordered a set, and they arrived, and this is what I got. Now, unfortunately, this has been hacked up quite a bit, and you'll see why in just a minute. But what I found is that the grill cutouts are incorrect for this model radio. They're really for a 37620, and there's no way you'll ever get this to work. It just isn't going to happen. I notified Tony over at vintageradiolabels.com, and he said, "Oh, no problem. I'll modify the artwork. I'll send it out," and he did. He sent me this. Now, this works out better for me because it doesn't restrict me to having these white areas line up exactly, because I may have to shift it around a little bit. I prefer this, and as you can see, I mean, it'll fit just fine. It'll fit perfectly. So I then noticed that there's a matte finish on this, which I didn't request. I guess he must have got the order mixed up. Because I really wanted the gloss finish. So what he did is he said, "Okay, no problem. I will send you a new set with a gloss finish." And also, this piece right here had to be lengthened by about ½ an inch. So he also extended this by ½ an inch. So I think that when I get my third set of decals, I shouldn't have any problems. But in the meantime, I'm using this as I'm taking advantage of this situation by basically experimenting with these and chopping them up and just having a grand old time. So one of the issues I have is the coloration is a little bit too bright for this radio. It's too stark. It doesn't contrast well with my dark coloring, which I think I mentioned this earlier, but I made the determination that my radio originally had a darker finish based on an eBay auction I found that showed such a finish. It was a 37640, the only one of this exact model that I could find that has not been restored yet, and it actually had a black edge, and it had a almost like a dark mahogany body. It had the original faux finish, which was also very dark. And if I recall, it wasn't glossy either, but it was a very dark finish. Now, there's always a possibility that 80 years of age could have done that to the finish, and of course, direct sun exposure for long periods of time. But whether it is or whether that's true or not, I really do like the subdued, less bright appearance. I could say darker appearance. I think that would be a better choice of words. I like the way it looks much better than if it were just a bright, oak or whatever the hell it is. So I contacted Tony again, and I said, I was wondering if you could make these labels a little bit darker. And he said, well, that's not really necessary. All you've really got to do is change the base color, the wood basically, and it will be, because it's translucent, it will actually reflect that. So I prepared an experiment where I took some of these useless scrap pieces, which have actually become quite useful to me, and I applied them to a piece of maple that I bought just to play with. And this is what I found. I tried 3 different colors of stain, and I got 4 different results. Why 4? Because I left this end plain. So here we have a natural wood finish. This is a natural maple without any treatment to it. And I got some air bubbles in there. Oops. Here we have an ebony stain, which looks amazing in person. And over here we have an early American stain, which darkens it just a little bit. Now the early American stain darkens it to approximately where the face of my radio is now in its natural color. Over here we have a red mahogany. And here are the stains I used. I got red mahogany, early American, and ebony. So that gives me a wide range of colors to choose from. And I'm really thinking of doing the red mahogany because I just believe that ebony is just way too dark. It would look beautiful, but it would be a little bit too muted, not bright enough. And I'm also going to use the other end of this piece of wood to experiment with microset. Now, just so you know, I prepared this piece of wood by sanding it first, cleaning it, and then applying several coats of clear lacquer, sanding it again, and then applying another coat of clear lacquer. And that gave me a nice glossy finish to work with. It's really not glossy enough, it should be more, but that's good enough for this project. One of the issues I had was how does the label, when it's installed, how durable is the product? And while I wouldn't put masking tape on this and tear it off, I think it would take the label with it, even though it's fully cured. I think it's durable enough for the average radio. And the thing about that is, I mean, if it does fail, it can always be replaced. I mean, this is really one of the least expensive options you have. It's also the fastest. It's easy to install. It's only $37 for one of these large labels. I mean, if you wanted to veneer the radio, you could, even though it's not how it was done from the factory. It's unfortunate that there is no way to bring back the original paper-based finish. I believe it would have been a paper product at the time that was applied directly to the face of the radio. Or it could have been an ink transfer. I don't know. I've never seen one in person. So I can't tell you what it was. But like I said, if this product ends up becoming a bust, I'm going to look at my options, and one of those options is going to be veneer, and I'm going to buy all the tools I need, and I'm going to spend all winter working on it if I have to. Okay, well that's that. I'm going to do one quick test, and that'll actually let me show you how this product applies. And I'm going to fill my sink with some water there. One of the tricks that I figured out by watching some videos on decal installations for like model trains is that you don't need to, and probably shouldn't, soak the product for long periods of time in water, because you could soften and wash away some of that glue. You don't want to do that. I hope you don't want to do that. If you do, you got problems. Alright, in this test we're going to soften up a decal here. And you see how it instantly curls. We're going to try to flatten it out. There we go. In the meantime, I'm going to take this bottle of microset. This is a decal setting solution. And I'm going to brush it onto the area, the slide. Paintbrush. This stuff smells an awful lot like 3D printer binder. 3D printer binder is a product that is used on powder printers, like the one that we have at work. It costs $900 a gallon, and so you thought gas was expensive. It costs $900 a gallon, and it smells exactly like this decal set stuff. So maybe there's a conspiracy there. Anyway, it tells me to apply the decal after applying the microset, and then it asks me to apply the microset on top of the decal. Now, I don't know what that's going to do for us, which is why this is only an experiment, but what the hell, let's just do it at once. This is supposed to relax the decal, and holy crap, that's exactly what it's doing. And then the instructions that I believe are posted on YouTube by vintageradiolabels.com instruct you to use the microset only on the edges of holes in the edge of the decal itself. But you can already see that the decal is relaxing very, very much into the wood. And we're just trying to work out these air bubbles. But what I'm hoping to prove is that the microset can help improve the oh, there we go, that's working. Use my finger. I got 2 holes in the decal somehow. Not really sure how I did that. Anyway, so that's what we're doing. I'm hoping to improve the adhesion. And it looks like microset eats away at the coating, but I kind of expected that. Now you can see the wood grain showing through very much more prominently than it would actually. No, pretty much about the same. So we're going to let this dry for about an hour. I'm going to wash my brush off because I want to reuse it again. And drain this out. We're going to let that dry for about an hour or two and see what happens. Okay. Yeah, no air bubbles there. No, I got a couple there. But again, this is just a test piece, so I'm not that worried. One thing I want to point out is the actual wood grain on our test piece really adds realism to these decals. Now, we actually have the same image here and here, but this one has real wood grain underneath it. This one does not. In my opinion, the variances in the wood grain pattern really do help the appearance of the decal. And like I said, it gives it a little bit more realistic, it makes the appearance more realistic. And I think that is kind of the winning finish, or if you will. But we're going to let that dry and see what happens. And what the heck, maybe we'll top coat it. Why? Okay, now that we've given the finish a little over almost 3 hours actually to cure, at least 2 hours, I want to try something. I'm going to do an adhesion test. I'm going to cut right into it like that. I don't want to remove it completely because I also want to run a few other tests on this. I'm going to take some masking tape. Now this is the side that does not have the micro. Okay, I've applied some automotive grade masking tape. This is a 3M product onto the decal. Now I've cut it so that if it does start coming off, it won't take the whole label or the decal with it. Here we go. Alright, came right off. And yeah, it is completely dry, so we know that's not the issue. Now let's try the microset. It stayed. As a matter of fact, it stayed well enough. It did eventually start peeling off, but the results were much more favorable. It actually was stronger than the ink underneath. Look at that. Now, we haven't even lacquered this yet. So what I'm going to do now is lacquer it. So this proves, once and for all, that microset does improve adhesion. It still sticks pretty well because before I did my test, I got some of the tape onto the decal and I lifted it off and it didn't do anything. So it does actually illustrate that even without microset, it does adhere pretty well to the wood. Now the purpose of this test, which I've already, of course, sprayed it with lacquer. The purpose of this test is I want to see what it takes to actually get a nice glossy finish over the installed decal. I want to see if I build up my lacquer enough, if I can actually sand it with a high grit sandpaper and not go through the lacquer. And also I want to make sure that the adhesive holds up underneath. But based on my little minimal testing here, my plan is, and this may not be the proper ReFauxPro recommended installation, but my plan is to use microset over the entire surface of the radio. I don't know. I'm going to actually send a message to what's his name? Tom? No. Tom, Dick, or Harry. I forget. I forget the guy's name. What? Tony. I'm going to send him a message and get his thoughts on doing a microset coating over the entire radio and ultimately the entire decal, just to see, if that would present a problem. But so far, adhesion looks good because when I did use the microset, when I used the microset on this section, and then I did the adhesion test, it took the top layer off of the decal, which indicates that because the base substrate stayed on the wood. That's got to account for something. So at least we know that there's something to that. So I'm going to give this another spray before it completely hardens. So that is 2 relatively heavy coats of lacquer. And I don't think I'm going to press my luck with this. I'm going to probably just leave it just the way it is. If I were to apply this to the radio, I would not want to run the risk of sanding through just accidentally, because that would mean I would have to redo the entire process, from sanding down the surface of the radio to respraying it. And if I was a perfectionist, which I'd love to be, but I'm not, that might be a viable option. But I think to avoid pressing my luck with this product, I can't ask too much of it, because remember, large decals are, they're expensive to replicate, and if I screw it up, I can't justify it. I can't justify it at all. But at least I now know what it's going to look like top coated and what to expect the adhesion properties to be like. And like I said, I'm going to actually order more microset, enough to fill a little container, and I'm going to brush it on the entire radio. But I'm going to get some advice from Tony of VintageRadioLabels.com before I do that. And in our next installment, you will actually hear the results of that conversation, and you will hear what he has to say about my thought or my methodology. So that will conclude this particular video. It's a little short, but there's not really much ground to cover. I think we've done enough torture testing we've top coated it. We know what the product works. We know how to work with it. I've watched a couple of videos of the application process, so I'm pretty confident that this is going to do the job. So, stay tuned.